This content was created purely for entertainment and informational purposes. The creators of this vlog do not endorse drinking and driving, debauchery, underage drinking, public intoxication, speeding, street racing or any other form of delinquency. I'm just a guy, with a drink, talking about cars. Please don't take this too seriously.
What's up? It's your boy, the Killer Bee, the Fat Man, the Africanized Honeybee, the Car Guy Blog 05 Guy at 05Car on Twitter, at 05Car on Instagram, at 05Car on Facebook. The word zero, Z-E-R-O, the number five, fifth. The word car, C-A-R. It's bad when you laugh at your own jokes.
Wow.
With me, as always, is my fabulous co-host, May Flowers. What up, May?
Yo. Since we doing intros.
I hear you've been running the street.
Literally, right?
Literally. You about that foot life, that pick them up, put them down, worn out knees and ankles life.
I'm about that time on your feet out in these streets.
Pulled hamstring life.
Okay, now we're not gonna talk none of that into existence, okay? My knees are still good. Now this hip got a few problems, but we ain't talking about that.
You can't pull a hamstring jogging, can you?
I mean, I think anything is possible.
You have to be at a dead sprint.
At a dead sprint or bad stretch position.
Let me say that another way. Somebody that runs as much as you do can't pull a hamstring jogging. I could probably pull a hamstring jogging.
Never say never, Never
but
say
I weigh
never.
like more than twice what you do, and I haven't run a meaningful mile in 20 years.
And I just officially today did the wardrobe switch. So I switched out my fall, winter, early spring gear for my strictly summer, hot as hell outside gear. Because after last week's cold snap, when I thought I could put away the long sleeve t-shirts, and the weather determined that was a lie because it was in the 40s in the mornings. And I'm like, where'd this come from?
See, when I was doing that kind of thing, my run attire almost didn't change for the season.
Oh, really? Oh, well,
no, because
are you one of those shorts and t-shirts all year round people?
I wasn't a runner, so I was either playing basketball or playing soccer outdoors. And in the fall, as long as you're moving and playing, you don't get cold. It's only when you stop. So
lies.
Yeah, I was t-shirt and shorts guy. I mean, also it's Fayetteville, North Carolina. Fayetteville has winter sometimes, but not every winter. I mean, I can remember it being 60, 70 degrees Christmas Day. You could play golf on New Year's Day. Some winters it never gets below 45 degrees, and that would be overnight. Other winters, you'll get sheet ice and it'll be below freezing for 3 or 4 days, and people act like the world's going to end. So it just depends.
I have a rule where I do not go outside to run if it is less than 20 degrees. And that is new because in previous seasons, I wouldn't go outside if it was less than 40 degrees, but I'm trying to be better and challenge myself. But anything less than 20 degrees, I'm not interested in. But I know people who are out there who have the yak tracks for the shoes and they run in the snow. And no.
Oh yeah, when I was in Iowa,
I'm not about that
Midwesterners about that life. I used to see people would snowshoe or cross country ski across the frozen lake at the state park.
Yeah, no.
And I'm like, you hardcore, because there were people who rode their bikes in the snow, but me personally, outdoor fitness activities stop at 55 degrees. Because I grew up in the South and that's what it was. Anything below 55 degrees was it's cold out.
Right. I have a rule. My favorite half marathon is the second weekend in November. And after that, it's generally, a wrap for me for the season. I will still run outside when weather permits, but that's the last big thing I'm doing for the year. And then I'm pretty much on inside the house until, March, April, because it's just the weather's just it's too iffy. My lungs don't like it. Nobody's endorsing me. I don't have any paid sponsorships. We don't have to do all that.
Yeah. Okay, so today we're talking about, again, we're getting in the Wayback Machine. We're talking about rally cars, specifically my rally car, which I don't have one, so that should tell you how the story is going to end. I don't know precisely when I became aware of rally cars. What I can say is that at some point in my life, I became aware of rally cars. And we've talked a little bit about rallying before. I guess ESPN at some point exposed me to rally, and the internet exposed me to rallying. When I was in college, it was probably around about the time that the Subaru Impreza and the Mitsubishi Lancer started getting big on the international scene in the WRC. And then there was the WRC Corolla and actually the Celica before the Corolla, and then the Corolla. And those were things that I noticed on the internet while I was in college, or should I say while we were, no, you weren't there yet. So while I was in college, before you got there. And by the time I graduated and started working, I knew that I was going to build a rally car someday. And my theory was just this. A properly built rally car would give me the best of all possible situations. I could drag race it, I could drive it on the street, I could take it to autocross or track day events. And if it was properly built, it would be able to do all those things. It wouldn't be able to do any of them well, but it would be able to do all of those things with basically just a change of tires and maybe swapping shocks or putting on a set of coilovers, changing the ride height a little bit. So that was the plan, because, you know, I'm a nerd and I plan things. And throughout the history of rally, so rallying predates, pretty sure it predates World War I, but certainly it predates World War II. And until 1980, give or take, 79, 80, all rally cars were two-wheel drive, we'll say, because the Mini was front-wheel drive, obviously, and some of the Alphas and the Lancias were front-wheel drive. But for the most part, well, all rally cars were two-wheel drive, and some of the top rally cars in the world were rear-wheel drive. Your Lancia Stratoses and your BMW M1s and your Ford Escorts, and I'm talking about European rear-drive Escorts, not the ones we have in America. Your Ferraris, yes, Ferraris rallied. Certainly your Porsche 911s, all those cars, rear-wheel drive cars. And then in March of 1980, Audi presented the Quattro Coupe at the Geneva Motor Show, and all of a sudden, four-wheel drive was the thing to do. And eventually, all top flight rally cars became four-wheel drive, except in the United States, because we do shit how we like to do things.
We like to make things up.
The SCCA had their own rally competition. Now, there were some rounds of the World Rally Championship held on North American soil for many years, but the SCCA had its own rally competition. And within SCCA rally, they had a two-wheel drive class unto itself. Yeah, so looking through the history, 100 Acre Wood Rally was 1977 to 83, and then again in 2002. Big Bend Bash, 73 to 76, 78 to 82. So clearly predating the time that I was driving, because I didn't get a driver's license until 1991. Pikes Peak International Hill Climb has at various points been sanctioned by the SCCA Pro Rally. Rim of the World, Sand Hill Sandblast, Snowdrift, Press On Regardless, Ojibwe Forest. These are, Mount Olympus. These are established American rallies, many of them going back several decades, at least to the 70s. Some of them are older than that. Within that, they had a separate, certainly in the late 90s and early 2000s, they had a separate championship for the two-wheel drive cars. And this is right about the time that I started really paying attention to rallying, because I graduated college in 1998. So there was a guy, we're not going to talk about his name because it's not important. He ran a restaurant chain, but he was also a rally driver, and he rallied in a Toyota Supra, big rear-wheel drive sports car. I was like, okay, yeah, he could do that. The Nissan 240 or the Datsun 240Z was Nissan's rally car in the 70s. There was an Isuzu Impulse, yes, an Isuzu Impulse, a 1988 Isuzu Impulse that was rallied by Will Perry in the SCCA Group 2 category for several years, and it did pretty not bad sometimes. The predecessor of the of the car that I call a 240SX, the predecessor of the S14. No, well, not the S13, but its predecessor, the S12, which in the United States was the 200SX, I think. Yeah. That car was Nissan's rally car for a while. So the idea of a two-wheel drive, rear-wheel drive rally car was not completely foreign and was still a thing in the late 90s and early 2000s. So I said, I'm going to build me a two-wheel drive rally car, and I was going to contest Group 5, which in SCCA category, Group 2 is restricted to normally aspirated cars with 2.4 liters of corrected displacement, and Group 5 is turbochargers and anything up to 5.1 liters corrected displacement. And I don't know what the SCCA's correction factor is. Usually in motorsports, they have some sort of equivalency formula for if you have dual overhead cams or forced induction to try to equalize, because in theory a four-cylinder engine with a turbocharger could just turn up the boost a whole lot and have a lot more horsepower than a normally aspirated 5-liter engine. So you have to do some equivalency there. But I was going to do a Group 5 car. It was going to be a 240SX with a turbocharger, and that's just what it was going to be. At least, in my dream world where I was planning these things in my head.
Did the two-wheel drive cars fall out of favor for any other reason other than there were more four-wheel drives available, or was there a performance aspect that was involved?
Well, in Europe, it was all about performance. The Audis were fast. Now, the Audis had some issues. One, reliability. Two, their long wheelbase, the original long wheelbase Quattro, with the engine, the entire engine was ahead of the front axle of the vehicle, because the Audi was nominally a front-wheel drive vehicle. That was a Volkswagen parts bin special. They were front-wheel drive cars that had a shaft that ran to the rear end and drove the rear wheels, but your base Audis were front-wheel drive. Because the engine was ahead of the front axle and they had that long wheelbase, they were not the most nimble of cars, but they had a ton of power. And everybody figured out pretty quick, oh wait, four-wheel drive's a game changer here. We thought it was just for trucks, but this is going to work. And then other companies set about building smaller, lighter, faster four-wheel drive vehicles, usually adapted from front-wheel drive platforms that ate the Audi's lunch. So while the Audi was very strong in the first couple of seasons, 1983 was the last time a two-wheel drive car won the World Rally Championship. That was the Lancia 037. They beat the Audis, and thereafter the Audis never seriously contended for the World Championship again. They were always around, but too big, too heavy, too slow. And before Audi could go to what was going to be a mid-engined evolution specialty rally car, the Group B category was dissolved for safety reasons.
Oh, okay.
But the short version is four wheels providing traction, especially on wet, gravel, snow, or dirt-covered surfaces, is just faster. Even with the added weight penalty of the extra drive line, even with sometimes potentially the handling issue, because four-wheel drive cars tend to want to understeer, it's worth it in terms of speed. I mean, like all top-level international rally cars today are four-wheel drive. It's not even a question. So in 1998, I bought the Stinger, and of course, a car that I just bought that I had financed, that was fresh off a lease and that I had financed for 5 years. I was not going to build a race car out of that, obviously. But in 2000, I got a new job and I got a relocation bonus, and I went looking for me a rally car. And I found a 1987 Mitsubishi Mirage Turbo.
Ooh.
It looked like a piece of origami. It was a small little 3-door. And like a lot of cars from the 80s, it had a lot of angles and wedges, but it was cute. It had 15-inch wheels, low-profile tires, ARS 5-star wheels, polished aluminum face with black accents. It had tinted windows. It had a little spoiler on the back. It had a Momo steering wheel and a personal shift knob. It had a cell phone cradle. No, the cell phone was gone, but the cradle was still there.
That's pretty impressive for a 1980s something car.
But most importantly, it was turbocharged.
Right.
And when I stepped on the pedal, approximately 2.5 to 3 seconds later, acceleration would arrive. usually accompanied by a cloud of smoke.
Oh, that's not good.
I later figured out was probably a combination of two things. One, those old cars that sort of primitive fuel injection system, probably it was just running super rich when you got on the boost. But also, I'm pretty sure the turbo seals were leaking. And so you had a mix of oil smoke and unburnt fuel smoke. So, smoke. Also, one of the wheel bearings was really bad, and it, say, at 30 miles an hour, it had a little shimmy, and then it would smooth out. And then about 60, it had a wobble, and then it would smooth out. And around 70, it ran pretty smooth. But you had to be careful transitioning through those points where that it would wobble real bad. And then if you turned left or right, you could hear the CV joint clacking. Clack, 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 clack. So it was an older car. It was in need of work because, I mean, this was 2000. So the car was already, 13 years old?
Yeah, and it definitely probably needed lots of work.
And it was well north of 100,000 miles. And as I found out later, it had been wrecked once already. So I bought that car in April, May, and I smashed it to smithereens that August. Yeah, wah. So rally car number 1, gone. Epic fail. I didn't even have the opportunity to buy any parts for it. It had previously been in a front end collision and another hit on the area of the body that had been stretched out once already. It just couldn't take it. I mean, the engine fell out. The only thing I have left of that car is the little Mitsubishi emblem. But at least I did go to the junkyard and I stripped the wheels off of it and sold those. I would have took the steering wheel and the shift knob too, but the insurance adjuster was like, we paid you for a whole car. If it is not a whole car when we come to pick it up, we will deduct from your earnings.
Well, that makes sense.
Yeah, but I hated that guy. He was a Geico rep. That's why I won't ever have insurance with Geico.
Ugh, let's not even talk about insurance and their people.
Yeah. So, Project Rally car number 1, dead on arrival, basically. A few years later, let's go back. So I was living in an apartment when I got rally car number 1. A year and a half later, I bought my first house, and you'll recall that house had a detached garage. It had a privacy fence. It had a concrete paved area behind the house, perfect for a guy that likes to tinker with cars. But then she who shall not be named came along, and we were betrothed for a few minutes, and then we broke up. And I bought Project Blue Streak, which was going to be my hill climb car, because, if I can't build a rally car, I'll build a hill climb car. And we went through all that. You can check out Project Blue Streak episode to find out what happened with that. But after that had failed, I went looking for another rally car, and I found a 1991 Nissan 240SX fastback, 5-speed manual transmission, storm damage. During an ice storm, a pine tree had fallen on the car, crushing the driver's side A-pillar and smashing the windshield.
Ooh, look at that.
And also part of the hood. But the guy wanted $250 for it.
Hey.
I was like, deal. It runs? Yeah, if we jump it, it'll run. Deal. So I bribed a good friend of mine with a trip to the gentleman's ballet.
Where you had a wonderful meeting with really good chicken wings, I'm sure.
Good meeting, chicken wings, assisted some young ladies with their college tuition, nursing school, etc. You donated to a scholarship program. Right. So he brings his pickup truck and we get $1 and we go get this car. We pay the guy cash. We go to the nearest Kinko's. Remember those?
Yes, Kinko's is now FedEx office.
Yeah, I know, but when it was Kinko's.
But I do remember when it was Kinko's.
I mean, that was my spot when I was in college. When we had to do some real project work and we needed to photocopy things and make slides and stuff, Kinko's was the spot. But of course, we didn't have one over on our side of town, so we had to go over Spring Garden Street by that other school, use their 24-hour Kinko's. Let me tell you about photocopying party flyers at 3 a.m. But anyway, We go to the Kinko's. We pay the $3 notarization fee so she can notarize the transfer of the title and the private sale of automobile form that's required. And he gives me the keys, and now I've got a car with a title, even though it's wrecked. And we tow it back to my place. Jump start it. It runs fine, but it is ugly. So I was like, okay, I got to get a pillar. I got to get a windshield. I'm doing an inventory on what it takes to fix this car and get it up and running. Well, it runs, but get it
looking pretty, because it's looking like that little
that I could take it out as a race car.
Right.
Well,
because it's looking like that little Charlie Brown tree. It needs
exactly.
some love.
Couple of months go by. I get the windshield out. I cut the pillar. I get a Sawzall. I cut the pillar, and I'm talking to the guy at the junkyard where I can probably get a replacement pillar. And I know a guy that can weld it in for me. I get the roof straightened back up flat like it's supposed to be. And I get ready to buy a roll cage, and just dumb luck, I happen to be going to the auto parts store one day, and out of the corner of my eye, I spot a red 240SX. And I was like, huh. And I drove back by that place a few more times over the next month or so, and that car never moved. And one day I just pulled in. I was like, hey, whose car is that? Well, he ain't here, but I can call him. I get the guy on the phone. We start talking. So what we got here is a 1989 Nissan 240SX Fastback. Automatic transmission, but the engine is blown and gone. Transmission is still in the vehicle. It's a flood salvage car. I was like, you got a title? He's like, yeah. I was like, you want to sell it? He's like, how much? I was like, $200. He's like, well, yeah, but for $200 I need to keep the transmission. I'm like, fine, I don't need it.
Sure.
So for $200 I get the car, the title, the colony of ants that's living in the car, and he pulls the transmission out. We tow it back to my place, and now I've got a body that's solid, mostly works, a little bit of rust, but surface rust, not a big deal. And I've got a car with a working engine and a transmission. Like, okay, now we're in business. So I start buying parts. I also pull the working engine out of the one car and install it into the car with no engine in it. And well, there's some things to this. 1989 Nissan 240SX was a single cam car with a 3-valve engine. 1991 Nissan 240SX was a dual cam car with a 4-valve engine. Now, that's not really that big a deal, except for they have different engine control units. They had different tachometer pickup. They had, because one car was automatic, the other car was manual, they had different wiring harnesses. So it wasn't a plug and play job, but it's doable. I get the engine out, I get it installed in the new car, I get everything wired up, I get a battery in it. I even poured over the dashboard, not the dashboard itself, but the tachometer. I swapped out the tachometer, which meant removing the instrument cluster. It was a pain in the ass. I'm telling you, it was horrible, but I did it. I turn the key, nothing. Okay. I buy a aftermarket starter, push button starter that I can put on the dashboard. Wire that in, press the button. Starter spins, but nothing else. I'm like, okay, what's going on here?
Right, like something's not happening.
Well, there's this little thing in an automatic transmission car called a neutral park switch. It makes sure that you cannot crank the car if the car is not in neutral or park. Because, automatic transmission.
Oh, yeah, totally makes sense.
Yeah, so the problem is the neutral park switch went bye-bye with the transmission. Right. So now I got to get a wiring diagram and figure out how to jumper this thing. But in the meantime, your boy gets a new job.
Woo-hoo.
And my presence is requested in Illinois. I got a house. I got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 cars. We'll call that 5. And I need to get my butt up and move to Illinois in a matter of weeks.
And that's going to be hard with all 5 of your children.
Right. So, let's see. How did we do this? Project Blue Streak was sawed up into pieces and thrown away. Because by that point, I had already sold the engine and transmission out of it. It was basically just a body. The black car, the 91 240SX, also got sawed up into pieces and thrown away. The white 1993 Mazda MX-3 was given to my parents. I mean, we transferred the title, but I gave it to them. The Stinger was loaded on a moving truck with my furniture and shipped to Illinois. The Landwell 93 Caprice station wagon I drove to Illinois. And the red Nissan 240SX, the 1989 car, I sold for $1,500 along with the new 5-lug axles I'd bought for it and the upgraded brake calipers I'd bought for it and the rotors and the roll cage kit I had bought for it. I had installed the hatch from the black car to replace the rusty hatch on the red car. I'd replaced the mirror, I'd replaced the headlight covers, etc., etc. It just didn't run. So basically, I got on the Nissan message board and told the guys, like, hey, first $1,500 in the truck gets everything. And my boy showed up, so he got everything.
Done and done.
Done and done. And I moved away to Illinois. So rally car number 2, epic fail. So that was 2005. So what we're talking about here is from 1998 until today, May of 2021, I still don't have a rally car, but I learned some things. First thing is,
that's the important part, right?
The most important thing is never build your own rally car. Just buy a used one. A used beat up car that's prepped with a cage and probably a trip computer is going to be cheaper than trying to convert a street car yourself. Unless you can fabricate a cage and weld it on your own, you're cheaper off buying a used car.
I mean, that makes sense too. I mean, and in addition to trying to secure parts and do all of that thing, I mean, that's just labor intensive. If you just
but I was young. It was fun. I bought a house with a detached garage just so I could do that kind of stuff because it seemed like an adventure.
It sounded good at the time, like most things in our youth.
like having kids when you're in your 20s.
Exactly.
It's like a good idea.
Sounds like a great idea, and then you get in that
I'll just
shit.
Build a race car, because I mean, honest, real talk. The thing about building it myself, and I make spreadsheets. So here's the list. So I've got, I figured out it was going to cost me about $9,000 to build the car as a normally aspirated car, and then a couple hundred more to convert it to turbos. Mostly that was about reprogramming a computer, because I already had a turbo, I already had a manifold. So there, with both of them being 240SXs, some parts were interchangeable, even between the different model years. Once you got into the twin cam engine, a lot of parts became interchangeable. So stuff I had bought for one car, I could port over to the other car. That's why I changed the wheels to 5-lug hubs, because then I could interchange wheels and tires between both cars. But as you can see there, I'm at just shy of $9,000, right?
Right. So at least your prediction was correct.
But that's $9,000 in early No, this wasn't a prediction. This was some of the stuff I actually bought. Others of it I had priced, and then some of it I had priced based on components purchased for the Stinger. But at that point in my life, this is the early 2000s, I didn't have $8,000 or $9,000 cash laying around.
Right.
You go buy a race car, a used race car, you really can't finance that. No bank's going to loan you money for that. So you got to buy it cash. I didn't have that kind of cash, but buying a little at a time especially when winter rolled around and I got my Christmas bonus one of the years that we got it, and then spring rolled around and I got my tax refund one of the years that I got it. I had these infusions of a couple thousand here, a couple thousand there, to piecemeal my way into a finished race car. And that's how I built the Stinger, honestly. And that was the plan, to build a rally car. It just didn't work out because new job, got to move. Company's only going to pay to ship one car. Everything else you got to ship yourself. And I shipped the Stinger back from the Midwest. That cost me almost $2,000. I was not happy about that. Yeah, I was not happy about that at all. And it's inconvenient.
Oh yeah, I mean that's
when you ship a truck with a private transporter, when they get there is when they get there, because they've got a schedule to keep. So when they call and say we'll be there tomorrow,
then you got to be ready tomorrow.
You got to be there to receive the car. So, I don't have any regrets. Yeah, I do.
Yeah, you do.
I do too, but. At this point in my life, it's like, yeah, now, yes, I would definitely buy a rally car. I would just go buy a used car, or because I can do that now, pay someone to convert it for me.
Yeah,
buy
things we can do now.
Buy a cash car for cheap, take it to a shop and say, put a cage in it and set the suspension up so I can go rally crossing in it, and then done and done. Because in the meantime, SCCA Pro Rally ceased to exist. Rally America has kind of come and gone a couple times, I think. It's not a good look. For a country with so many back roads, we don't seem to like driving on them.
Right. That's interesting. We have all of this space, and you would think it would be utilized.
I mean, people go rock crawling or whatever and ATV in, but when you talk about getting in a car and going through the woods at speed with a co-driver, people look at you kind of like, it's a thing. Okay, whatever. So yeah, that's the story of the multiple rally car failures.
Ah, yes. Well, at least you can look back and laugh now.
Sure. Ha 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 ha
Ha ha ha ha ha ha.
ha.